Introducing a lineup of international award-winning and talented indie authors, only on the Writers' Corner live show.
Chasing Karma propels the Jessica Ramirez series into uncharted, heart-pounding territory. This standalone thriller is just the beginning of what promises to be an enthralling journey with this captivating series. Stay tuned as we welcome the mastermind behind it all, Mr. Terry Shepard, on the Writers' Corner live show. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Writers' Corner live show, the weekly water cooler for authors and readers. Join us for 30 minutes of insightful conversation with some of the biggest names in the industry. We feature award-winning authors, New York Times and USA Today bestsellers, and even international indie sensations. Tune in and join our family-friendly community only on the Writers' Corner live show.
If you're just joining us, welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. If you're not following us, make sure you do so you can get notified the next time that we go live. I am Mary Elizabeth Jackson, and I'm an author in Tennessee and USA. In today's show, we're going to talk to Terry Shepard, and our live stream is made possible by Creative Edge, StreamYard, and Be Live Media. So Chasing Karma propels the Jessica Ramirez series into uncharted, heart-pounding territory. This standalone thriller is just the beginning of what promises to be an enthralling journey within this captivating series. So we are going to be welcoming Terry Shepard on our show today. I'm so excited. So Terry is a seasoned writer and a familiar voice in radio, television, and film for over 4 decades. Known for his contributions to the 221B Club, these are stories for middle grade readers, the COVID-19 children's classic Juliette and the Mystery Bug, and the captivating Jessica Ramirez series, which we'll be featuring today. He's also the host of the popular Authors on the Air podcast and a skilled narrator who breathes life into characters, adding depth to the storytelling, thriving realm of audiobooks. And so let's introduce him to the show in just a second. I'm so excited. Hi, Terry. Here you come. Hi, Terry. Okay. Yay. Hi.
You make me sound a lot more important than I am, kiddo. I'm not that special,
Well, you are to us. So we have to share you with the world. And I didn't realize my mic was muted in that first section. So I was like, I'm just going to go back and read it again because it's very important.
Hey, I can hear you. You sounded fine to me. Yeah, it was
okay. Awesome.
I heard it twice.
All right, cool.
It sounded better the second time.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, it showed on this end that my mic was muted, but no big deal. You know what? It's okay. We're all good. We're here. We're thriving. The sun is shining, and it's a fantastic day to be with Terry Shepard on a Tuesday. So Terry Tuesday. That's what we should call every Tuesday, Terry Tuesday.
I like it. Yes, absolutely.
So, okay, so in Chasing Karma, this is, for those out there who don't know you, it is your Jessica Ramirez series.
Yep.
So in this book, it takes a thrilling turn. Can you share what inspired you to explore this new terrifying dimension in her journey?
Well, I'd done everything else to her. That's the thing. This is book 3. So, what you do, the first thing you learn in writer's school is that you run your protagonist up a tree and you start sawing off the limbs and throwing hand grenades at her. And that's kind of what I did. And I was trying to think what else could I do that would just totally, put her behind the 8 ball and test her character. And in chasing karma, she loses both her face and her memory. So she has no memory of who she is or her background. And she's beaten up by these three bad guys so badly that her face is kind of destroyed. And she's taken in by a kindly plastic surgeon. And the only pictures that she has to work with is the ID that's in Jessica's pocket, which happens to be the identification of the killer that she's going after. So this plastic surgeon gives her the killer's face. She has no memory. Everybody in the world is looking for this killer, and they're coming after her. And part of the kind of twists that I keep throwing in this is that everyone else in the world also thinks that she's dead because the killer was sent to kill her. So that's kind of the, one of the things about Terry Shepard plots is they're very twisty and turny. And I have too many characters. I mean, people that give me the lower ratings say, hey, I can't keep up with all this action. But you are never, ever bored with Chasing Karma. It's doing very well. I'm very pleased with the way it's turned out.
I'm so excited. But you know what? That's the way a brilliant mind works. A brilliant mind doesn't work slow.
Gee whiz.
It doesn't work slow.
Where's my wallet? Right? I have to send you some money. This is great.
It's all true, though. Okay. So karma is often associated with the idea of destiny and consequences.
Right.
I was just talking to my son about this, trying to explain it to him. How does the concept of karma play a role in the storyline of your book? And what message do you hope readers will take away from it?
Well, karma is kind of a funky mistress, right? I mean, she can do good things for you. She can do bad things for you. And usually what happens is what goes around comes around. So if you've done something good, good karma usually reflects back at you, but not always. As you and I have both discovered at points in our life, the unexpected happens and we don't understand in the moment why. And in Jess's case, we see lots of situations where karma is happening. And sometimes it happens good for her, but sometimes it sets her up for what needs to happen next in her life. And also, in every one of the Jess stories, one of the reasons I think they do so well is, when you open up a Jessica Ramirez book, that she's going to win. It's just a question of how and how much, she's got to go through to get to that point. And with karma, I pulled out all the stops. I thought this was going to be kind of like the end of the series. So I figured, okay, what else can I do to this poor girl? And I did. And the storylines are, her story, but also her partner, Alexandra Clark, is bound and determined to go get the guys that were behind all this. And all the ensemble cast from the other two stories shows up in this book. They all line up together to do this. And watching how that happens, for me, was part of the fun of creation of Chasing Karma.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's so fun that you get to have fun with what you're doing,
Yeah, it didn't seem so fun in the middle of it, Mary Elizabeth, when I was really trying to figure it out. But
I know. Battles, you can't sleep at night. I know. And somebody was talking about, I don't know who it was. I had a conversation with someone just like in the last day or two talking about, well, your character shouldn't be telling, you shouldn't be so lost in them. You have no control over them and they can't, I'm like, you don't write, do you? Because I didn't mean to sound like that, but it's like, you understand these beings take on a life of their own.
Right.
And then you're up at 3 a.m. because they won't shut up. They're like, I want you to have this.
When the music's singing, you got to listen. I mean, that's it. What I've learned is she's learned some discipline with me over the years. And I do go to bed a lot earlier than I used to when I was writing the early books, because whenever I would get the ideas, I just had to get them out as quick as I could while I still had them. Because when you get to be my age, you forget that stuff if you don't write it down. But karma, the way I start all my stories is with a short story. And usually, Captain started out with a short story about Jessica witnessing an electrocution, an actual execution in Nashville. And Vega started out, I didn't even really know who Jess was going to be when Vega started out, because the first scene in Vega is the bad girl dispatching somebody, basically drugging him and throwing him into the Grand Canyon. But my bad girl in Vega is, I love antagonists that do the wrong things for the right reasons. And in the early chapters of Vega, we have this gal named Vega, that's her nickname, who her flaw is that she can't stand not seeing justice happen. So what she does is she goes and looks for these guys that have gotten away with stuff, with murder. And then she takes them to the Grand Canyon, seduces them, drugs them, and throws them into the Colorado River. And that that started out with the first chapter. I mean, I hadn't written anything. I didn't know what I was doing. I just wrote that chapter. And that was the one I shared with the people that were mentoring me at the time: Dan Brown, James Patterson, Megan Abbott, those folks. And and I said, where do I go from here? I have no idea. And they said, well, you need a protagonist, and probably a sidekick. And then the cast just kind of assembled. And once I had Vega down, then I kind of knew a little bit about what I was doing. And Captain came along. And that was where she went after the one guy that got away in the first story.
Nice.
But then I killed all the bad people. So I had to figure out who was running the captain, because there were people above him. So at the end of Captain, we got a little bit of a taste of who those people were. There are 3 guys that are oligarchs from various countries. One's from China, one's from India, one's from Russia. And they're kind of the guys behind the scenes in everything politically that happens in the world. And it's a very now kind of story, because I think, we're seeing these autocrats that are in charge of a lot of these big countries, and democracy is in trouble. So I like to write stories where the good guys win. And so karma became basically the destruction of those 3 guys, how that actually happens. And they're the most guarded guys in the world. It's very hard to get to them. And so Allie, Jessica's partner, who believes she's dead, decides that she's going to go after him. So she pulls together all the people we met in the other 2 books, and who are basically saying, no, you can't do that, because these guys keep stability in the world. They're the guys behind everything. And she says, why? No, we don't need those 3 guys. And slowly what happens is that the US government finally gets behind them, because they have plausible deniability, right? They have these freestylers that want to go out and kill these guys. And the Secretary of State says, well, why do we need to have a triumvirate of guys that are, basically running the world? Why can't democracies do that? And the President of the United States says, that's okay. And we've got a group that can do that. If they fail or something happens, we can deny it, because everybody knows they're freestyling. But if they win, we all win. So they're set up to be able to go, they get what they need to go after these guys. And then meanwhile, you have the Jessica story of, how does she get her memory back? How does she deal with going after a killer who looks just like her? How does she convince her friends that she's not the bad person and stay alive until that all happens? And that was the fun part about creating the book, putting all that together.
Well, and that was, you just kind of basically kind of told us some of the things the challenges you had trying to keep this character, like fresh and intriguing. And it sounds like, it sounds like you really did it. And I know I told you before the show, my copy is with one of my neighbors who, every time I get a new book from an author, I could just call it my little library. My neighbor comes over and borrows and goes through my books.
Thank you for distributing that. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I really like to share these amazing books that and authors that I get to interview. It's such a privilege. And you're definitely, in our world, you're, one of the top. So top tea on a Tuesday. Hey, there you go. Okay. So, okay. All right. Now, standalone thrillers within a series can be delicate to balance. We're talking about that, right? How do you feel like that you approached ensuring that Jessica Ramirez could be enjoyed by both newcomers to the Jessica Ramirez series and longtime fans?
Yeah.
You feel like you have a special recipe for that?
I thought a lot about that, Mary Elizabeth, and you really can pick up any of the books and catch up very quickly. There is some exposition. There are exposition scenes in each of the books that kind of bring you together, but they also are little kind of like Easter eggs to get you to want to read the other books. So we know in each of the books, Jess's fundamental challenge. I mean, as a kid, she was an excellent swimmer. That was her thing, to be a Latina and have that special gift. She was so good that the Olympic team approached her and said, we want you to try out. But her father stopped her. He said, "You can't do this. You make money with your mind, not with your body." And he kind of forbade her to do that because she was still in high school. And that was something that always bothered her. It was a rift in her relationship with her dad. It was part of the reason she became a cop. She became a cop when she was over 18 and old enough to do her own thing just to piss him off, right? And
That's a good thing to
in
do.
Vega, in book 1, they have a reconciliation. Uh, he finally understands why she needs to be who she is. And, he tries to call her to tell her about this and leaves her a message that happens right before. I mean, they're coming after her, and they decide the way to get to her is through her family. And turns out he's the only one in the house. I mean, the other people, her cop friends, have heard that these guys are coming. They go grab the family, they get him out. But he's at church talking to the priest saying, "I think I've really hurt my daughter." And he says, "You got to go back and make it right." So he comes home to an empty house, picks up the phone. She's not picking up because she's talking to the cop saying, "Did you get him out? Did you get him out?" And that's when the explosion happens that kills him. But the last thing she hears is his love for her and saying, "Look, I've always believed in you." So that drives her desire for revenge against Vega, because of course Vega's behind that. I'm not giving away too many spoilers, but Vega's behind that. But the thing that she discovers is that revenge doesn't solve grief. Revenge is not a cure for life. And but she's also has this huge moral compass where when she sees wrong, she's got to right him. Even if, her partner, Allie, is always saying, "Let it go. Let this one go. You don't need to solve you don't need to do this." And in Captain, she drops everything because she believes this guy she saw get electrocuted for murder didn't do it. And she has one little clue that takes her to England. And she goes to England because she's got a ton. My Jessica character has a ton of fans in the UK. And they were always writing me saying, bring her over here. Bring her over here. So Act 2 takes place in London. And she has some adventures over there. But she doesn't need to go. This murder case is like 10 years old. He's been through all the appeals and everything. Everybody in the world is telling her, yeah, he did it. But she doesn't believe it. And she discovers she's right in the second book. So in the third book, what she has to deal with is it ties kind of everything together. And she also has this love interest. She's got this guy at the FBI who's just totally smitten with her. And in each one of the books, at the end of the book, he asks her to marry him and she puts him off. So we're trying to figure out in this book whether or not they're going to make it. And there is something that happens toward the end of the story where they both decide when we leave the story at the end, both of them have decided that they aren't going to make it. But I leave the door open for the fourth book for them to possibly have another chance. But all of my Latino friends who love reading the Jess series say, not him, not that guy. It's got to be somebody different, And then the cop people on whom she's based says, Jess would never get married. No, that's not her personality. She's a freestyler. Break it up, so they all want to break it up. But then I have the women in there who think that he's a god, they love him because he's always protected her. And they're saying they got to get married and they got to have kids and all that kind of stuff. So these are the things that authors deal with their fans, because everybody's got, as you know, from writing, everybody's got a point of view. And I love that dimension of it. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it's really awesome. And, I'm thinking about the characters you're talking about it. And maybe she has something in her past, her childhood, or something with her dad that keeps her from thinking that men are safe and trustworthy and that she would be okay to be married, or that she's so independent.
Yeah, I think it's a controlling thing. I mean, she's in a profession. She's a minority female in a profession that has a long tradition of patriarchy. And she rebels against that. And that's kind of, like rebelling against her dad. She loves her dad very much. Before she ever pulls the trigger, she always says a prayer to him. She says a prayer to her dad. And she really does love him. But she's grown up with a bunch of guys, even as a kid, in the schoolyard, the boys would pick on her because she'd fight back. She was a fighter. And as an adult, she's all the cops want her to fail. And when she dies in book 3, there is a marvelous scene at her funeral that I won't tell you about because you can read it and learn about it. but where we really see the essence of her strength and the impact she's had on other women. And that's the goal. I mean, when I started writing, I really didn't have the goal of selling books. I had the goal of trying to inspire young women, especially women of color, to consider a career in law enforcement, and also to try and bring the minority communities and the cops closer together, because they really are on the same side, even though it doesn't feel like that sometimes. We have what did our teachers used to say? One person spoils it for the whole class. Remember that when you were growing up?
Now you're all punished.
Yeah, right. And that, in our world, with the George Floyd situation and stuff, there certainly is a group of police officers that are bad actors, but I've met so many that are not. And I think that really the majority in any ethnic group or any group that we associate ourselves with are loving people that just want to get along and want to have a good life. And that's what I try and do with these books. When I go out on the road with Jess, I take her real life counterpart with me, and we go to towns where there are large Latino, organized Latino communities. We go to the Latino center, and I just play the book trailer, and then I say, I want you to, here's the real Jessica Ramirez, take it away. And I shut up, and she talks for 45 minutes. And then I just watch them buy the books on the way out. And it's, I'll buy all the books.
That's
and
amazing.
That's the goal. The goal is really to try and change the world a little bit for the better, because books are books. I mean, that my stuff is popcorn thrillers. I mean, they're meant to be read in 6 hours, and like going to a movie. I hope they will become a movie someday. But I'm not changing the world with that. What I try to change the world is to inspire young people to think about a career in law enforcement, because we need good cops.
Oh, don't we? And we need cops of all ethnicities. It doesn't matter what your background is, We need them, because then there's more of a balanced representation.
That is so true, Mary Elizabeth. And that was initially when I started writing, I'm a white guy writing a minority woman. Everybody told me not to. They said, the guys in Hollywood that I know, and I know a few, have said this will never be produced because you're not female. Well, you'll never get on television with this. And, it's very hard for me to communicate what my growth has been through this whole process, because for me to be able to, and all of us authors, anytime you become an author, you're going to take on, you're going to have an antagonist who's going to kill people. Well, we don't go out and kill people to learn how to do that, right? We have to figure out how to get inside these people's heads. And for me, it was a really powerful meditation. It was an opportunity to walk side by side with people that weren't like me, that didn't look like me, and say, look, let me immerse myself in your life for a couple of weeks to understand a little bit, just a little bit, about what it's like to be in your body. And the gift for me is that I feel like I'm a much more compassionate human after having walked side by side with these people who are different than I am. And I don't care if people say, you're a white guy, how can you possibly know? I don't have to know. All I have to do is love,
Well,
and
we're
this
all
experience has
humans.
taught me about that. Yeah.
Well, and we're all humans. So, it goes back to, we do all breathe the same air, and we look at the same sunrise and set and the moon, and we all bleed red. And so, we have things that we can understand about each other.
And it's life's journey, right? We have to figure out not only how to understand people that are different than we are, but how to alleviate suffering. I mean, that's the ultimate goal of life, is that we're supposed to try and mitigate the pain that's around us. And there's a lot of it, right? So that's been, when I was a corporate guy, that was my goal. I always tried in customer service to figure out what it was customers needed and create products around those needs to solve those things. And in life, I'm very interested in others. I'm very interested in their journeys, and to see if I know somebody who can help them. I've done that a little bit for you from time to time. I try to figure out, who do I know with what you're working on that I can throw in your court to help promote the beautiful music that your daughters make and that kind of stuff. And that's where my joy comes from, when I can make those kind of connections and I can actually see the result. And when I talk to people who've read Karma, the thing that makes my day is when I hear from, a 17-year-old Latina in Chicago who writes to me and says, I think I want to grow up to be like Jess. How do I do that? How do I start? And of course, I got a million cop friends in Chicago. So I say, let me introduce you to this woman I know who's with the Chicago police, who can tell you what the path is. And that's where my joy comes from.
And it's an admirable joy, and it's one that I hope that you never lose, Terry, because we need more people like you.
Well, it's a daily fight, It's a daily fight. We all have stuff going on, but you do the best you can.
You keep moving forward. Yes. So the title Chasing Karma, because we have a time for about one or two more questions, I think, but the title Chasing Karma suggests a quest or a pursuit. What can readers expect in terms of pacing and suspense as Jessica navigates this new chapter of her life?
Well, a Terry Shepard book is definitely written cinematically. Yeah. So every chapter, my goal with every chapter, and Dan Brown taught me this, is to make them want to turn one more page. And a lot of people do. I mean, they're short enough that you can consume them within 6 or 7 hours. It's a great airplane book. And I actually have I got an airplane version. That's what this is one that I made for flight attendants. And I carry them with me whenever I travel, and I give them to, I said, you like to read? And then I'll offer this to, and I'll say, this is for you for free. It's got a little special thing in the for flight attendants. And I ask them to do two things. One is to leave me a review on Amazon. The other is to give it to something like you did. Give it to somebody else, pass it on. And I can trace sales to those encounters. So I always have whenever I travel, I got 5 or 6 of them. I just came back from Michigan. I had 10. I now have 1 left, and you hand them out. And that's the way it works. Marketing, especially as an indie, everybody knows marketing your books is the hardest thing to do. So I always try and identify the audience. And if I figure out that somebody likes that, I'll give them a taste. I'll give them enough of a taste so that they may want to go deeper into Jessica's life.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So the series has been acclaimed for its blend of suspense, character development, and thought-provoking themes. I feel like I'm doing it like an announcement for a movie right now. What's next for Okay, so if this gets turned into a movie, then please hire me, right? And I'll do the voice for it. I'm kidding. What's next for Jessica and her world? And how do you see her continuing to evolve in future, installments?
So what Jess is going to do is Jess is going to move into the background. She will be in each story, but I'm bringing other characters to the forefront. So I do have a Jess 4.0 done, and she comes into the story in the second act. It takes place in Dallas, Texas, and there's a professor that is, gets in some trouble, and some people try to kill him. And the guy that the cop down there doesn't really know what to do in this space. So he calls Jess because she's got experience. And she and Allie come down to Dallas, and they're there in the second and third act. And it's a real police procedural where she goes through all the evidence, and they really figure out who the killer is, because they figure out the real backstory. There's this undercurrent of something else that's going on that nobody knows about, and she figures that out. So she's in there. And then I have a PI that I've written that is in a couple of short stories that are coming out soon. And I've gotten some really good feedback on him. And he's in Jess's world. Jess is the guy he goes to when he needs cop help. So she's not going to be so much in the forefront, I think, for a while. I think I'm going to develop some other characters and have fun with them, see where they go.
I think that is absolutely amazing. And okay, we have like a minute left. Do you want to read like a snippet from the book real quick?
I will give you the opening stanza.
Okay, let's go for it.
When normal people face the barrel of a gun, their eyes dart between its infinite darkness and the corneas of the person tickling the trigger. Sweat beads above upper lips. Sounds and smells amplify. Seconds elongate into hours. Whether bravado may be part of their act, vanishes. Whatever bravado may be part of their act, vanishes. And even the least religious conjure up a prayer, pleading to God to give them one more day. That's the opening paragraph.
Beautiful. And of course, I could listen to you talk all day, as well as, anyone else that we know that know you, because you are an amazing narrator. So
thank you. Yeah, I do narrate this one. Yeah, it's available all over. And it was fun to read that. I mean, because it's first person. So I had to learn how to read like a woman too. So
Oh, that is very interesting. We'll have to talk about that next time we have you on. So, because that's a very fascinating story in itself, I assume. But Terry, thank you so much for joining us today. And we will have to have you back on as your journey is going to continue. The books are going to keep coming. So we will keep having you back on and sharing your journey. And we're so grateful. And, thank you for joining us, everyone. We look forward to seeing you next week in another episode of the Writer's Corner Live Show.
Thank you for joining us on the Writer's Corner Live Show. 30 minutes of insightful author conversations with some of the biggest names in the industry, including award-winning authors and international indie sensations. Join us on the next episode of the Writer's Corner Live Show.